Welcome to part 2 of my horror DVD collection. If you haven't seen part 1 already, please go and check that out. So, we're continuing from where we left off, of course. So, we're going to start with this pile. So this is The Devil's Advocate. Excellent film. Keanu Reeves, Al Pacino. Yeah, just great. Interview with the Vampire. I haven't actually watched the new TV series yet, but from what I've heard, it's really good. I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Cruise. I personally don't really like it. I don't like him that much, to be honest, as a person. But he's been in some excellent films, and this is one of them. And then there's the sequel, Queen of the Damned. Not as good as Interview with the Vampire, but I still enjoy this one quite a bit. And this is a box set, the Best of Hammer. So this has The Nanny, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Quatermass in the Pit, Frankenstein Created Woman, and The Devil Rides Out. So 5 gems on here. So yeah, it's a really nice box set. And I have Ghost Ship. This has a lenticular cover, which is pretty cool. Good film. I've only watched it a few times, but yeah, it's really good. I like this a lot. And I have all 3 versions of The Shining. So this is the Stanley Kubrick film, and of course, Shelley Duvall, rest in peace, passed away recently. But yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, this is a classic. Needs no introduction. This is the mini-series, which has Steven Weber as Jack Torrance. I enjoy this. This is actually really good. I think this is a good adaptation. And I have Doctor Sleep. I liked the second half. It was a bit slow during the first half, but the second half, once it started getting going, it really got going. So yeah, the second half I really enjoyed. And this is my Frankenstein collection. So this is the Frankenstein Complete Legacy Collection box set. So this is all the Universal Frankenstein films. So we've got the original Frankenstein from 1931. We've got Bride of Frankenstein, The Son of Frankenstein, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which is a crossover with the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, and House of Dracula. So yeah, those last 3 films are crossovers. So yeah, Bride of Frankenstein, House of Frankenstein also has Dracula and the Wolfman in it, and House of Dracula has the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster shows up in it as well. So yeah, that's a really good collection. And these are the Hammer Frankenstein films, which I actually prefer to the Universal ones. I think Peter Cushing is my favourite version of Dr. Frankenstein. So this is The Curse of Frankenstein. Yeah, I think this is my favourite adaptation of Frankenstein. I just absolutely love this. And then The Revenge of Frankenstein. I have all the Hammer Frankenstein films except for Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, which was the last one. Yeah, I don't have that one yet. I've seen it and I like it. But yeah, I just haven't been able to find a copy yet. This is The Evil of Frankenstein. Yeah, I enjoy all of these. This, I think, is my favourite Frankenstein film. I mean, Curse of Frankenstein is my favourite adaptation, from the book. But if we're talking Frankenstein films in general, I think this is my favourite. Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Yeah, this is just great. And yeah, I do have Frankenstein Created Woman, of course, but that's in that Hammer box set that I just showed you. And this is Horror of Frankenstein, which has Ralph Bates playing Baron Frankenstein in this one. It's supposed to be a remake of Curse of Frankenstein. It's not as good as Curse of Frankenstein, but I still enjoyed this one. It's more of a comedy. It's more like a spoof. There's some comedic moments in it. And I've got Young Frankenstein, which isn't really a horror film. It's a comedy, but it's part of the Frankenstein collection, so I'm showing it. But yeah, Gene Wilder as Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah, it's a great film. It's classic. Mel Brooks. You got Peter Boyle as the Frankenstein monster. Just excellent. Just comedy classic. And we've got Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the one with Robert De Niro and Kenneth Branagh. Yeah, this is a great adaptation. I kind of find this one a bit underrated, because this came out a couple of years after Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula gets a lot of love, but this one I think gets a bit overshadowed. But yeah, I enjoy this one. And this one's I, Frankenstein. Can't say I've watched this one. It's supposed to be like an action movie version of Frankenstein. From what I've heard of it, people have said that it's crap, but yeah, I'll watch it at some point. I've had it for a few years. I bought it because it's Frankenstein, basically. This is a really good adaptation. This is from 2015. This was made by, the one by Bernard Rose, who directed Candyman. And, it's actually got Tony Todd in it. And Danny Huston plays Victor Frankenstein in this one. So yeah, it's like a modern day adaptation that's set in America. Yeah, I really enjoyed this version. And then this one's Victor Frankenstein, the one with Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy. Yeah, I enjoyed this. Not one of the best films I've seen, but yeah, it was enjoyable. And now to my Dracula collection. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of Dracula. So I have the original Nosferatu, classic. I'm looking forward to the remake of this. I think it's coming out this year or early next year. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then 1931 adaptation of Dracula, Bela Lugosi. Not one of my absolute favourite adaptations. I mean, yeah, objectively, it's probably the best adaptation. And yeah, Bela Lugosi is probably the most iconic Dracula. And yeah, I think he's amazing. But he's actually not my favourite. I think Christopher Lee is actually my favourite version of Dracula. But yeah, it's still a classic. And then Dracula's Daughter, which was the sequel. This one doesn't have Dracula in it, but yeah, it's a sequel to the Lugosi film. The only character from the first film who shows up in this one is Edward Van Sloan's Van Helsing. So yeah, he's the only character from the first film who appears in this one. Yeah, this was good. It wasn't, it's nowhere near as good as the first movie, but yeah, I liked it. And this is Son of Dracula, which has Lon Chaney Jr. as Count Alucard, which is obviously Dracula spelled backwards. Yeah, I enjoyed this, actually. This was really good. And now the Hammer Dracula films. So we've got Dracula, probably my absolute favourite adaptation of Dracula. And Christopher Lee is just, yeah, like I say, he is my favourite Dracula. And then Brides of Dracula, which has Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, but yeah, Dracula's not in this one. But still a really good film. I still really, really like this one a lot. And yeah, of course, I've already showed Dracula Prince of Darkness, which was in that Hammer. It's in that Hammer box set. So this is Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. I love this one. I love this sequel. And this is Count Dracula. Obviously this isn't a Hammer one. It has Christopher Lee in it, but this one isn't related to the Hammer film. This is Jess Franco's adaptation of Dracula. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's quite a good adaptation. Because the reason Christopher Lee did this one, because he wasn't happy playing Dracula in the Hammer films, because he didn't feel that he was being given enough to do. So yeah, so he got sick of playing Dracula in the Hammer films, but he wanted to do this one because I think he'd always wanted to be in an adaptation of Dracula that was more faithful to the book, which is why he was in this one. And yeah, it is quite faithful to the book. Yeah, I enjoy this one a lot. Taste the Blood of Dracula. This one does get a lot of gets a lot of shit, but I love this one. And obviously Dracula wasn't originally meant to be in this one. It was Ralph Bates was meant to be the main villain. But yeah, but at last minute they ended up making it a Dracula. They just put Dracula into it and killed off Ralph Bates' character. And then we have Scars of Dracula, another really underrated film. I love this one. Of course, it's got a very young Dennis Waterman in it, and Patrick Troughton's in it as well. And this was just after he left Doctor Who. Dracula AD 1972. Another film that does get a negative reception, but I enjoy this one. Dracula in the modern day, and this one has Peter Cushing returning as Van Helsing, but as a descendant of the original Van Helsing. And this is the Satanic Rites of Dracula. I believe this is a foreign import. I believe it's Spanish. I don't know that for certain, but I think it's Spanish. It's in English though. If when I watch it, it's in English. Yeah, it's English with Spanish subtitles, but yeah, you can turn the subtitles off. So, but yeah, I enjoy this one as well. A lot of people really don't like this one. I really do. And this is Dan Curtis's adaptation of Dracula with Jack Palance. Yeah, this one's really good as well. I like this one. It's not one of the best, but it's really good. I think Jack Palance is pretty good as Dracula. And this is the Count Dracula, the BBC adaptation from 1977. This one's Louis Jourdan as Dracula. This one's quite faithful to the book as well. It's slow paced, obviously because it's made for BBC television in the 1970s. It's not very gory, and it is quite slow paced. Yeah, it's quite long as well, but yeah, it's really good. I actually like this one. And then Nosferatu the Vampire, the remake of Nosferatu with Klaus Kinski as. In the original one, the name was changed to Count Orlok because Bram Stoker's widow wouldn't let the filmmakers use the character. So yeah, they changed the character names to avoid copyright, but obviously Bram Stoker's widow wasn't fooled. But in this one, he's actually called Dracula. Yeah, a good remake. It's quite creepy and atmospheric. I think Klaus Kinski does a really good job. Yeah, so this one's Dracula Sucks. Now I have quite a funny story to tell you about this one. About 5 years ago, So back in 2019, I went to Comic-Con in Birmingham, and yeah, they sell DVDs at Comic-Cons, of course, and I was looking at the DVDs there, and I saw this, I didn't know exactly what it was, but, I knew it was Dracula, and being a huge Dracula fan, I just grabbed it and decided to get it because it was Dracula. I didn't really think anything of it, but it wasn't until I got it home I realised that it's actually it's a softcore porno film from the from 1979. So it's a 70s softcore porno film. So yeah, I haven't watched it. I don't really have any intention of watching it. I don't even know why I've still got it in my collection. I suppose it's because I paid quite a lot for it. Because at Comic-Cons, they sometimes tend to charge quite a lot for DVDs at Comic-Con. So I think the only reason I ended up keeping it is because of how much I paid for it. But yeah, I'm not gonna watch it. Yeah, moving on. And this is the Frank Langella Dracula. Yeah, I love this one. This is probably my second favourite adaptation, or my third favourite. It's one of my favourite adaptations. And it's got Laurence Olivier in it as Van Helsing. It's got Donald Pleasance in it as well. Yeah, this is great. And then, yes, I do have Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's version. Gary Oldman is great as Dracula. You've got Keanu Reeves. A lot of people criticise Keanu Reeves' British accent, but I think he does a great job. You've got Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing. Such a good... It's got a Hollywood feel to it, but it's such a great film. This was actually the first proper adaptation of Dracula. This was the first proper adaptation of Dracula I saw. It wasn't the first Dracula film that I saw, but the first actual adaptation that I watched. So I love this film so much. This is Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is the Mel Brooks spoof. As well as directing it, he also plays Van Helsing in the film. And you got Leslie Nielsen as Dracula. This was the first Dracula film that I watched. Yeah, I love this. I think this is actually my favourite Mel Brooks film. I mean, I love Young Frankenstein. I actually like this more than Young Frankenstein, personally. But yeah, I adore this film. I've got Shadow of the Vampire, which is about a fictionalized story about the making of the original Nosferatu. You've got John Malkovich playing the director, and you've got Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck, who played Count Orlok. Yeah, it's great. And this is Dracula 2000, a modern day retelling of Dracula. It's the one with Gerard Butler as Count Dracula. It's got Christopher Plummer as Van Helsing. Yeah, it's not one of the best movies ever made, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good popcorn flick. And it was followed up by 2 sequels. So we've got Dracula 2 Ascension. Yeah, I've only watched this once, but from what I can remember, I remember liking it. And then the third film, Dracula Legacy, which has Rutger Hauer as Dracula. Yeah, that was pretty good as well. I think these 2 sequels were straight to DVD. Yeah, they weren't released in cinemas. And I have the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. So basically an action movie take on the Van Helsing character. It's fun. Yeah, not one of not one of my favourite movies ever made. It's not one of my favourite films, but I don't watch it a lot. But I haven't actually watched it for a long time, actually. But it's enjoyable. You know, it's got Count Dracula in it as well. It's got the Wolfman in it. It's got Jekyll and Hyde. You know, yeah, it's fun. This is another really good adaptation. This is the one with Mark Warren as Dracula and David Suchet as Van Helsing. So yeah, this was a TV adaptation, which from 2006. Yeah, this is really good. Yeah, I recommend checking that one out if you've not seen it. It's really good. This is Dario Argento's version of Dracula, which a lot of people didn't like this. I really liked this one. And Rutger Hauer's in this one, but he plays Van Helsing. Whereas in one of the Dracula 2000 sequels, he played Dracula. So yeah, he's played Van Helsing and Count Dracula. Yeah, this one, unfortunately, it's got gradual disc rot. Where is it? Yeah, it's still playable. It still plays, but at some point I will get another copy of this once this one starts to get really bad. But yeah, it's okay for now, but once it gets really bad, I will replace it. And this is Dracula Reborn. This is a modern day adaptation of Dracula that's set in America. Not really any well-known actors in this one. It was released straight to DVD. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I thought it was a pretty unique adaptation. And Dracula the Impaler, which isn't an adaptation. It's basically it's set in the modern day. It's this group of American college students who are on vacation in Transylvania, and they basically go to Castle Dracula, and yeah, and there's a woman there who is a disciple of Dracula, and yeah, she ends up killing everybody. So the character of Dracula isn't really in this film. You see him in a flashback at the beginning, you know, as Vlad the Impaler. But yeah, it's an enjoyable gore fest. You know, if you like gory films, you know, I think this would be right up your street. And this is the TV series of Dracula with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers as Dracula. Yeah, this was a really good series. Yeah, it's such a shame that this never got a second season, because this was a good series. This was a good adaptation. And Dracula Reborn, Dracula Untold. Sorry. Yes, this one's about where he was Vlad the Impaler. So yeah, in this one he actually starts off as human, but then at the end he becomes a vampire. Yeah, it's good. It's enjoyable. And it's Dracula Reborn. It's not related to the other one that I just showed. This one's called Dracula Reborn. But yeah, this is just a completely different film that just has the same title as this one. But yeah, it's not the same film. Yeah, it's not really an adaptation. It's not really related to the Bram Stoker novel. It's just, I think it's set in the modern day. I've only watched it once or twice, but yeah, I think it's basically set in the modern day. But yeah, the only connection it has, I mean, it has Dracula in it and his castle, but it doesn't actually have any of the other characters in it. So yeah, it's basically just a standalone film that just has Dracula in it, basically. But yeah, it's yeah, I remember liking it. I will watch it again. This is Michael Ironside's Dracula, the original living vampire. This only came out a few years ago. So yeah, it's basically another modern day adaptation. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. And then the last one here, this is Renfield with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Yeah, I love this. This was a really good comedy. Yeah, such a fun film. So yeah, that's part 2 of my horror DVD collection, and I'll see you again in part 3. Take care.